Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and medium Kellee White. Two perspectives, one world. This is Both Sides Now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
I'm medium Kellee White.
And we've got John here today, as usual.
Well, hello, ladies.
How are you doing today, John?
I'm good. How are you?
So I'm glad to hear that you're doing well, because a lot of people during this time of year aren't.
That's right.
As our show today is called Holiday Dysfunction.
There's no fun in that.
Right. There's no fun in that dysfunction.
I'm looking forward to mine. I'm going to go back to San Diego to visit my brother.
Yeah.
I haven't done that in a while, so I'm looking forward to it.
How fabulous. Yeah. I bet a lot of people can't say that.
Or say that and then find themselves surprised yet again, as they do every year. Right?
Exactly. Boy, does that happen.
I know. I think we have this. I think it's because of all the, holiday shows, and everyone wants to get in the holiday spirit, and it's, the media and TV and stuff makes it so everyone gets along, and it's the warm and fuzzy feelings.
It's that myth of Courier and Ives. It's the mom's in the kitchen, and she's got the turkey and the smell, and the kids are out playing football with the dad, and the table's set beautifully. And
no one's totally stressed out because of all the food they're cooking.
Well, it's funny you mentioned smells, because couldn't that trigger something, like a past memory or something?
Well, they can. It's interesting that you say that. I mean, anything can trigger anything, and that's the key. Is, what I always talk about is expect the expected. If you didn't get along, or if, because when we go back to our family of origin, unless we're aware of it, we go right back into that energy. So if you were the picked upon kid, you're going to go right back into that picked upon energy. And, even if you notice your body, you may walk in like this instead of walking in like the adult that you are now, living maybe 3,000 miles away for a reason. And, having, I'll never forget when I started working at Department of Children's Services. I mean, I literally made life-altering decisions for people, whether I was going to take their kids away from them or not, if I assessed abuse. And then I'd go home and my mother would say, "You didn't clean your room, or you came home too late."
Oh, my goodness.
And the dichotomy between the two of those was what? So you may be having this perfect, wonderfully fulfilled an adult life, and then you go back to your family and you go right back into that energy. So it's something really to pay attention to and notice.
Right. What do you think causes that, Shirley? That we all go back to that? Because all of us are most of us are going to go and back to family situations.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the dynamic that was created in your family. Now, let's face it, everyone comes from some kind of dysfunction. It just depends on the, percentage of, right? And so if you know that your father's going to make you feel a certain way because that's how they made you feel when you were a kid, or your sister or brother's going to make you, then know that. Expect the expected. It's not going to take away your frustration or your annoyance of it, but it's not going to surprise you either.
Okay.
If you know exactly what to expect, it's not going to surprise you. And the beautiful thing with that is, if it's different, it'll be such a pleasant surprise.
Well, that is true. My mom tells a great joke about a psychiatrist.
I love it.
It's such a good one. That a husband comes in and he says to the psychiatrist, "I think I made a Freudian slip." The psychiatrist says, "Well, what did you say?"
Wasn't it for Thanksgiving dinner?
For Thanksgiving dinner. He said, I thought I said, "Please pass the mashed potatoes." And somehow I said, I hate you, you fucking bitch. You ruined my life. So there will be unconscious things that pop up during this time.
Right.
Especially with wine.
Oh, wine.
Right.
And nowadays, a lot of people are smoking pot, too, beforehand or during.
Lowers the inhibitions. Well, there's a lot of people, in our field, this is our busiest time of year.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
And although many people are on vacation, it's one of the most stressful times of year. People can get so anxious. Some people even have a panic attack at the thought of having to go back to their families.
Oh, yeah, it's quite
holidays.
common. Right.
So it's so important to just know that. That awareness in and of itself doesn't change anything, but it allows you to be prepared for it. And when we're prepared for it, then we have that split-second moment to decide, okay, how do I want to respond to this instead of a knee-jerk trigger reaction?
What happens with the amygdala during that period of time, Shirley?
Well, the amygdala is our threat detector. And on a good day or on an average day, the amygdala is scanning for threat every 5 seconds.
So would you say walking into a family situation that you could possibly be scanning for threats?
Well, you are. I mean, that's what the amygdala does.
Okay.
It scans for threat all the time. We're not aware of it, but it's always scanning, kind of like a telescope, submarine, ooh, like that. And so when we're walking into what may feel dangerous to the nervous system, an older brother that picks on you, or a parent that, that does feel dangerous to the nervous system.
Sure.
And so your amygdala is on overdrive. And so now it's scanning more than every 5 seconds, and you're on overdrive. So anything anyone says, boom, it's going to put you in that,
Right.
it's going to trigger you, and then you're going to have a tendency to react.
Well, and not only that, then you might come up with, and the last time we were together, you did this. And then, I mean, it just
snowballs.
Snowballs.
It can snowball into Never Never Land.
Right.
So it's so important to, first of all, know that. Know that is going to happen. It's not because there's something wrong with you.
No.
It's just the energy of the dynamic. It's the dynamic that's there.
And then I look at it spiritually as why we get these certain times of the year. We'll have a Thanksgiving, or we'll have a Christmas or Hanukkah, or some sort of Passover or something where we're all brought together. So why are we brought together this time? Spiritually, I look at every single moment like that, because we do choose our families. We choose our mother, our father, our sister, our brother, everybody. So why did we choose now this experience? So how can we have this experience different if it's always been a negative experience?
Right. Well, how can we turn it around?
How can we turn it around?
I think one thing is to be able to kind of see what you're learning from that person. And
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's not what we expect. Learning something is not always from that positive, side of the spectrum.
Right.
It could be what not to do. A
Could be.
parent maybe taught you how not to be a parent, or a sibling maybe taught you how not to be, a sibling and supportive. So it's learning what we've, kind of taking a look at what we're learning from them, from whatever side of the spectrum that is.
And I would suggest, one of the things too is important is to observe the person. So if somebody comes in as a mother or father or brother or child or whomever you're with that starts to trigger you, observe the person, and then actually observe it, widen your lens a bit and say, wait a minute, what I wonder how this person got that way, and start to have compassion for that soul, and view everybody as a soul, as opposed to, it's my brother or my sister. Actually view them on their path.
That's a wonderful idea, because it can kind of help depersonalize it just a little bit.
Right.
And if you see it as what is that person doing? If it's negativity, you might even want to wonder, would you really want to live for a moment in that person's mind?
It's a great one.
So
yeah.
negative. I know I wouldn't. And so we can actually feel a little bit more compassion towards them.
Oh, absolutely.
And we will react less. We're still not going to like it.
Right.
But we may have a tendency to react less often from that trigger of, your brother making fun of you, or always having a wisecrack, or putting you down, or, that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so important. I really love what you said about expanding the container. If we expand our container for those anxious feelings, or for that, we're less likely to react to it as well.
Right. Exactly.
And we can expand that through different ways, by expecting it, by staying grounded, noticing your feet on the ground, all the time, by observing it almost from not from, a little sister point of view, or a daughter point of view, or son point of view, but as you said, who is this person?
Who is this soul?
Right.
And what's this soul up to? And just kind of pull yourself back instead of on attack mode or waiting to get attacked. Try something different. Just observe them as a soul oh, look at their soul's progress. But don't have any judgment on it. I mean, you're going to have family members. They're going to be doing drugs and alcohol. Mom, dad, somebody's going to screw up.
Right. Well, again, it's that dynamic.
Yeah.
So see what you can do, even as you're preparing to go,
Absolutely.
Before you go, see how you can kind of, shake up that energy. Maybe react differently, or don't react when you get criticized. Or
You be the change.
Right, you be the change. And sometimes all it takes is one person
Absolutely.
to switch things up and to change that energetic dynamic, and then everybody kind of follows suit.
Right, because will be surprised. They're going to want people are going to want to go back to the same dynamic. But really, spiritually, you're not learning anything. You're just not learning anything. All right, yeah, I've seen you get drunk. I've seen you blow up. I've seen you throw. I've seen you have a tantrum. All right, really? Can we try something different, you think, this time? What if we, talked and, I don't know, didn't have, and weren't negative to each other? But even if it's just something simple, take it.
Right, exactly. I mean, remove yourself from the situation. If everyone's in the living room, maybe having a pre-dinner drink, and that kind of negative energy, or you notice yourself getting triggered, stay really in tune with your body and notice when you get triggered. Then just pretend you have to go to the bathroom and take a few moments to yourself so you can ground yourself again.
That's a great idea.
You had talked about something to do beforehand about kind of speaking to your higher self.
So there's a couple of things that I would suggest, and if you're going to walk into what could be a stressful situation, first thing is before you go in, I'd start, a couple days before or sooner, as soon as you can, and start now,
sooner.
Where you have your higher self. So on the other side, your higher self. Everybody has a higher self, and the higher self is compassion and love, and you have your higher self talk to the other people that are going to be at the event.
The higher selves,
the other
of your
higher
family
selves
members.
of the family members.
Yeah. So in your mind.
Use your imagination if you need to. Go into a meditation. And imagine that you're talking to your brother or your sister's higher self and saying, look, let's all get along here. Let's just try something different. We're all here about love. We're all here to, support one another. Let's just give that a go and see. But try that. That is an amazing thing. You can do that on every level, even before meetings do it. I mean, it's a real positive thing to do. Another thing is before you walk in, take your shoes off and get grounded on grass or on sand or on anywhere outside, and let that energy kind of drain, because often, but when you're about to walk into a situation, you're going to be maybe on heightened alert. Like you said, the amygdala is going to be ready to go.
And bring the sage.
And that's hysterical. Bring the sage.
Can you imagine walking
my
in
God.
with sage?
So funny.
Already. And
Here comes the hippie.
Yeah, no, here comes Kellee. That's what they would say.
But it's so different. It's like, try not to fall back into those old patterns.
Yeah.
Understand that, when you were a kid, you didn't really have a say. You just kind of were, I hate to use this word, but a victim of your environment. You were, you were there, and people acted the way they acted around you. But you're an adult now, so you can walk into it with a different energy. When we get triggered, particularly with family members or even with a spouse or something, we don't realize it, but we go into that child perspective, and that's why we're reacting.
So what you're saying is stay in your adult.
Yes.
If everybody can stay in your adult. Don't drink too much alcohol. Don't do drugs. Don't throw sand in the sandbox.
Right, exactly. If you stay in your adult, then you can respond to things differently, and don't try to change them. The only person that you're changing is yourself as you walk into that environment.
Right.
Because, then it comes into this accusatory, you always do this and that kind of stuff, and you're not going to change anybody. And in fact, that's just going to bring up their defenses. So if someone says something, like if your sibling says something critical, you can just say, wow, that kind of really hurt my feelings. I mean,
What if
how
you just
would
walked
someone-
away?
Well, or you can walk away, or you can not respond. But how would someone react differently instead of saying, you always criticize me, to, wow, that kind of hurt my feelings? I mean,
You're right.
there's no place to go for the other person.
Right.
Or they can say, oh, you're such a pansy. If they're really into that critical and they want to hold on to that, then at that point you can go, I
Okay.
don't want to have this conversation, and you walk away. But that again is coming from your adult perspective. As a little kid,
Right.
you couldn't. Maybe if it was a parent, you'd get more in trouble, or if it was an older sibling, they chase you around the house and you get beat up more. So, but you're an adult now, and you really need to see yourself as that. And sometimes, as silly as this may sound, we get shot right back into that energy. So go to the bathroom and look at yourself in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
And really see that there's an adult looking back.
Oh, that's a good one. That's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
What do you do for people that are going to be alone for the holidays? The people that have lost family members, or people that have lost their spouses through divorce or death. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, a lot of people have become really sad during the holiday season when they don't have someone to go to, again, because, all TV shows and
It's all about that.
all movies,
Right,
all
everything.
about huge families and stuff.
Right.
And
Again, everything goes to that curry or eyes.
exactly. And, being the avoidant that I am, to me, Thanksgiving is just another Thursday. I don't,
I always view it as a time that for consciousness, for time for love, compassion, and consciousness. I do. I think
Yeah.
that it's a very special energy, and although there will be people that will be alone. Maybe if somebody recognizes that somebody's going to be alone, maybe they'll help. Invite them to join them
yeah, or
if
or
they wanted
have,
to go.
right, and that's, an opportunity for you to develop agency. And agency means, what we can do to help ourselves. So maybe ask your friends, hey, is it okay if I join you on that day? I really don't like to be alone for the holidays.
Right.
Or, figure out things that really fill your soul and do that on that day. So you're not sitting there thinking about how lonely you are, but you're doing things that fill your soul. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have, that you're not going to feel lonely if you have no place to go. I mean, I'm not trying to suggest that it'll take that away. But if you're doing things to take care of your soul and to take care of yourself and to show compassion for yourself, that does switch it a little bit.
Yeah, there are
it
people who
does.
do orphan Thanksgivings, where it's basically a bunch of friends that get together, or soul families that
Oh,
get
I love
together
that.
and have
Yes.
Thanksgiving. Some people do Skype calls because they can't be with their family because they're, the
Fantastic.
distance, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I would imagine, and I apologize that I didn't research this beforehand, but, there's that wonderful group meetup.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder if you can find a meetup for people on Thanksgiving that don't have families to
That's
go
a
to,
great
and maybe
idea.
you can join that, So there's different things, I would see it as an opportunity to take care of yourself. You're not that little kid anymore, and
Exactly.
do things that, that will empower you to help yourself in that moment,
Right
and
on.
not sit back as a victim. Oh no, I've got nowhere to go this holiday.
Right. No, you're a spiritual being having a physical experience.
Yeah.
And definitely go to maybe seek out a homeless shelter or some place where you can be of service.
That's
And-
another wonderful
Great
idea.
idea.
And, because I always believe that there's no problem you can't give your way out of. So
Oh,
you
I
just
love
give,
that.
give, and then, and then your problems seem smaller because you're giving your time and your energy. So,
I like that.
So if you can be of assistance to people who are in need, it's a very fulfilling feeling.
That's wonderful. I love that. Can you repeat that? There's no
There's no problem you can't give your way out of. So
That's wonderful.
you just give to get what it is that you're seeking. So if you're lacking connection with people, then you try to be the one that's connecting with them. Or and one way of doing that is, if you feel alone, then try to help go to a homeless shelter or a soup kitchen, something like that, and be of service, and then you're going to connect with other people who are probably I hate to do comparisons, but are probably in a worse condition than you are, because you have a house at least. These people are on the street. These people are suffering, and this is a very special time for them because they're getting a 4-course meal.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
get to be the one to deliver that. And there are people who give haircuts on that day. I mean, I've worked before in Skid Row in downtown LA for something like this. So it's the best time, and usually that's when the longest wait lines are. Actually, it's because everybody wants to do it because everyone's getting in that giving spirit.
So
which
it
is
can
a
be
great
an
thing.
of service day.
Be of
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in your own neighborhoods, people.
Yeah. So it's so important to have that compassion for yourself. We find it so easy to have compassion for others, and not so easy to have compassion for ourselves.
Oh, that's a tough one, Shirley.
It is. Why do you think it's so tough? I mean, from a spiritual standpoint.
Oh gosh, Such a good question. I don't know if we're ever taught that, while we're growing up to feel not to have compassion for what we're going through. I don't think we're ever taught that. We're taught to have compassion for others, but I don't know about it for ourselves.
That is such an interesting thing, and I've never really kind of verbalized it that way, but you're absolutely right, because everything is taught. Even empathy is taught.
Is it?
And if we don't, and if
How
we
is
don't,
empathy taught?
well, because,
by observation?
By observation, by helping our child. Well, how do you think your friend felt when you called them names?
Okay.
How would you feel? I mean, that's a way to teach empathy. You put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? But we don't teach, you're absolutely right. We don't teach what do you want to do today? What makes you happy? Let's do that. Do that for yourself.
Right, or the compassion about, again, I've said this many times, but what each individual goes through on this planet is, it can be pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't come here just to, to have all this fun. I mean, not really, or there wouldn't be the word dysfunction. I mean, and often the dysfunctional members are here to teach us things too.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, all the time, really.
I think so. I mean, as I said before, sometimes they teach us what not to do, or sometimes they teach us acceptance through they're not accepting us. How can we accept them when they're not accepting us? So in a way, we're learning acceptance ourselves, or if that's the lesson or whatever it may be,
Right. Sure.
So it's if we switch the way we look at things, if we switch our perspective, so many things are about perspective, and that's not just, a silly thing.
It's so important for us to remember that, if you can switch your perspective of things, look at all things, look at it from another angle, another viewpoint, maybe put yourself in your sister or brother's shoes, or your mother or your father's shoes, or something like that, so you can kind of get an idea. Maybe you won't go in with an attitude. Maybe your attitude would be one more of compassion and understanding.
And in reality, it'll be the energy of that will be less defensive. I mean, when we're walking into a dangerous situation or what our nervous system perceives as dangerous, and words can be feel dangerous. It's not just something physical coming at us. We go into defensive mode, and that energy, we read that energy off of people.
Right. And during the Thanksgiving time, that will be a time where there will be could be some words exchanged.
Right, exactly. So I think there is nothing wrong with, like you've taught us, Kellee, to put like a protective, golden light around us. But that's very different.
It's very true.
Yeah, but that's very different than walking in with our armor up.
Right.
If we can walk in with compassion and that golden light of protection, then I bet you we would see a difference in the people around us. Now, they might actually get more defensive because they don't trust that, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That's their stuff, not yours.
Right. But the idea is not to get triggered.
Right.
The idea is to separate yourself enough so you can observe, enjoy.
As much as
enjoy.
possible. Right.
Everybody doesn't have that many opportunities to be together.
Yeah.
Kind of remember that too.
Yeah.
Because there will be members that'll be leaving through divorce or through death or through whatever. And things will constantly change.
Right, exactly. And the reality of it is what I talk about with my patients sometimes is if you have a parent who was not nice to you, but you're choosing to still have a relationship with them, then at this point, and they're older maybe, at this point, then do what's going to cause you to not feel guilty once they pass.
Oh, that's a really good
one.
one.
And that's a good reason to do something,
as a medium,
too.
I hear that a lot, that people feel guilty.
Right.
About they should have done this or they should have done that. So perhaps you would take this time, again, if you're all going to be together, from that viewpoint, to know this isn't going to last forever.
Right.
It just isn't. Things are going to change.
Right.
And sometimes quickly.
Right. And that doesn't mean that you allow yourself to be the victim of crossfire.
No.
But that just means that, okay, I'm going to go to Thanksgiving to, my family of origin's house because I don't want to feel guilty if they pass or when they pass,
Right.
And that could be a reason too, and that's okay.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with someone cutting ties if a parent has been abusive.
Oh,
I
no.
really don't think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment there. But if you choose to continue to have some kind of a relationship with a parent who, either doesn't get it or was abusive or something, then know that you're doing it for your own, for what you can live with when they pass, and that's perfectly fine.
And again, we're all here for our soul to grow. and to learn. And
Yeah.
I would use this as an opportunity for that, for growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Use it as an opportunity for your own growth. And you don't know when you're going to cause one of your other family members to start thinking a little differently.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow, I'm going to live for that moment.
So maybe if you were the criticizer,
Right.
walk in and don't criticize and actually be complimentary. Maybe do the opposite of what maybe you used to do.
It would be a great title for a book, something like, the opposite man or the opposite person. Do the opposite of whatever you think that they think that you're going to do the opposite.
Right, exactly. Because we're talking to people, imagining them as the, as the recipients of a lot of stuff from family. But what if you were, the kind of bully in your family?
I think I'm going to walk in as a bully.
We don't mean to do
That'll
the opposite.
shock 'em
Right.
all.
We don't mean to do the opposite in a negative way. Right. But yeah. I mean, if you were the one that, I don't know, that never said compliments, be the complimentary one this holiday season.
Or if you were the quipper, like you always have these quips, don't be a quipper. All of a sudden be pretty serious. I tell you what, that'll get everybody's attention.
Yeah. You might even be, there might be someone that go, what's wrong with you? You're different, and you might get, and that's okay.
That's
Just
okay.
say,
Glad you
nothing.
noticed.
Glad you
Right,
noticed.
exactly,
Oh, I love it.
exactly. So there's a way to shift the dynamic, if not for everyone else, but at least for yourself, and have different tools in your tool belt. If it gets too much, just,
Turn on
walk
a movie.
away. Well, right, throw on a movie or excuse yourself and pretend like you have to go to the bathroom, even if you don't.
Yeah.
To just have a few minutes
To
to
breathe
yourself.
and all
Right.
that. Yeah.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and get centered.
Get centered and get grounded and get centered. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know that there are some tips that we can share here.
Well, first of all, know your triggers. I would suggest, if you really want to be elaborate about this, I would suggest that you kind of write down the name of everyone who's going to be there.
Okay.
And as you say the name, my brother Bill,
Okay.
then you sit and you notice and see if there's anything in your body. Does your stomach get tense? Do you have anxiety? And ask your body, what is that communicating? Why do I feel anxious whenever I think about my brother Bill? And see what comes up.
And along those lines, take your brother Bill, and after you've done that, ask what your spiritual lesson is from him. What is it? What are you learning? What's he learning from you? What are you learning from him? Think spiritually per each person.
Right, exactly. And that will allow you to feel maybe a little bit of compassion for them.
bet.
And then I might suggest to, as a third, as a C to this, is to then have your higher self, imagine speaking to their higher self, and making a different agreement for this holiday season.
Right.
And then go to the next person, mom, dad, uncle. If you really want to try, and if you really have a horrible time and you're dreading the holidays, then it's really worth your time to do this exercise. And even if it takes you an hour, a couple of hours, don't try to do everyone at once. Separate it. Do, a few people one day, a few people the next day.
And it would be fun to journal it, have the experience, and then come back and look at your journal.
Exactly. And please let us know if
yeah.
you notice differences. We do believe that you are. Notice what your triggers are with that person. Notice why they trigger you. How do you feel when your brother walks in the room? And be curious about why. And then see if you're viewing it, which most likely you may be, you're remembering it, again, from that child perspective. Who are you today? And can you hold on to that, that person that you are today, and see if when you imagine, when you think about that brother or sister, if you feel differently coming at it from that more adult perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there will be a time, if you practice this over and over, there will be a time where you don't get triggered.
Right.
It just is. I was in a situation recently where there were a lot of dynamics going on, and I was amazed that I actually didn't get triggered.
Yeah.
And I certainly could have, but I didn't.
Well, absolutely. If you do get triggered, take some time for yourself, walk outside, go walk around the block, excuse yourself and go into the restroom, and then come back and maybe do something different they would never expect. Either apologize or apologize for your reaction. There's always something that we can own in a situation like that.
And when you're doing that, you're raising your vibration, and that's the point. You want to keep your vibration high.
Right.
You want to do things so you are exuding a spiritual ease about yourself.
Right. Before you get there, listen to something, listen to
Oh,
music.
that's a great idea.
That allows you to feel, calm and open. If you're used to staying at your parents' house and that's too much, then choose to stay in a hotel. I mean, remember, you're an adult now. You don't have to do what you used to do.
Right.
So boundaries is a good thing.
Boundaries. Oh, that's a good one.
Boundaries. Know your boundaries. If you realize that, by 7 o'clock, everybody has been drinking so much that that's when, that's when it starts,
Right.
then maybe you
Bye-bye.
leave the party
Bye-bye.
early. Right. Exactly. You leave the party early and you don't stay until after. And if you get criticized for it, then say,
well.
that's okay. You're welcome to think whatever
Right.
you'd like.
Absolutely.
But I need to leave now and I'll be back tomorrow or whatever it may be.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Pay attention to boundaries.
So plan ahead is a huge one. Don't just walk in because you're going to walk into the same environment. Really take some time during this time. We have how long? About a week and a
Few days.
few days before.
Yeah, just a few days.
Yeah. So that's plenty of time.
Yeah.
You've got Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and actually later on this afternoon, 3.5 days to really do this exercise. Think about everyone that's going to be there. Take some time to notice somatically from your body what's coming up. Be curious about that. What is your body communicating? How can you switch that?
Right.
Speak to their higher self.
And spiritually, what is your relationship with the person spiritually? And then the other thing is what you are grateful for each person. If you can get to a place of gratitude, that's really incredible. And actually, I'll tell you what
Wow.
would really blow them away, actually, is if you walked up to that sister or brother or mother or father or whatever and say, I just want you to know I really am grateful for you. This is what you've done for me. I mean, they will be stunned.
Yeah, they will
stunned. And really deeply, it will be felt and deeply heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what would you suggest, though, for people who, what you taught me is how not to be? I mean, what would you suggest?
How not to be?
Like, if my mother taught me how not to be a mother, I'm not going to
Oh,
walk up to
yeah,
her and say,
say,
thank you for
"Thank
teaching
you,
me
you
how not to
fucking
be a
bitch."
mother. Right? That wouldn't go down too well.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No, just say maybe you could acknowledge how hard she's worked, or
So find something
find
about them.
Find something about them.
Yeah.
Well, you have to think about that one, but find something. There is something
Right.
because you chose each other to come in with. So there's
Right.
got to be something, but you wouldn't say, thank you for,
Right.
teaching me, how to
Well,
be
that's what I'm
mean.
saying, because sometimes you don't have something positive, so it's important to look for that
something.
thing.
Yeah.
Maybe the person, the father didn't pay attention to you because he was hardworking. That doesn't mean it didn't affect you as a kid, and it's okay that it affected you as a kid, and it's being curious about how it affected you. But again, then the positive thing would be you're a hard worker.
You're a hard worker. You provided food for us. You
Right.
worked so hard, or
Right.
something. You
Yeah.
can find something.
Yeah. While you're doing this exercise that we're suggesting of putting every member who's going to be there and really giving, thinking about that person, the primitive part of the brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. And so when you're thinking about that person, you're going to feel, your body is going to react. So notice all the triggers, because anything can trigger us. Smell can trigger us.
Oh, yeah.
If your mother's perfume triggers you, then when you're working on your mom, know that. Maybe the color they wear triggers you.
Or the smell of alcohol could trigger you.
Exactly, the tone of their voice. So be aware of everything that can triggers you. The more aware you are, the more ready you're going to be, and you will be able to take that split second to notice the trigger.
Right.
And then have time to choose your reaction, choose your response, as opposed to just reacting to
Absolutely. And you have a choice then. And if you can kind of slow it down just a modicum of a second, you actually have a choice of how you want to respond. What do you want to do? Why don't you make a spiritual approach to everything now? Try it.
it. Right.
The show should be called Healing Dysfunction.
Healing dysfunction.
Really,
Healing
that's what
family
we're
dysfunction for the
aiming
holidays.
to do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it's more often than I think we really imagine. I mean, there's a reason why our busiest time of the year is during the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that, there's degrees of dysfunction, but dysfunction is the key word here. You know?
Right. But through this dysfunction, you can have incredible growth.
Oh, absolutely,
To
absolutely.
me, that's another way to view this, too. And I mean, view it as, here I go into growth, and kind of put a sense of humor behind it, even if you need to.
Right, exactly. And maybe what you may be dreading is that there's been a death in the family, and so you're dreading how people are going to respond to it or having to feel that sadness. And so I might suggest that you get rid of the elephant in the room. And as you get there, you talk about, wow, how is it for you this year that, you know, mom isn't here, or that, you know, if someone, forbid, lost a child, you know, talk about it, bring it up. So it's not the elephant in the room that everybody's trying to skirt and not talk about.
Right. Or for people who have gone through divorce, you know, ask them how they're doing.
Exactly.
What's it like to be single? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. People do want to talk about things.
Yeah. And the more we talk about things, the less, you know, the less it can be a trigger and the less uncomfortable it could feel.
I mean, you could actually walk out of that Thanksgiving Day and say, oh my God, it was incredible. We all got along. It was fabulous. Go figure.
Right, exactly. Well, you know, one change in you can really cause a change in the whole system.
Right.
You know, maybe not, but you'll at least view it differently.
Absolutely.
You will have walked away a little differently, if nothing else, more empowered and more of an adult. And I can almost guarantee you that next year you will feel different just going to it, because it'll be the adult you going to that holiday.
And starting to make new memories of that. And really getting that adult strengthened.
Exactly. It's so different when the adult you walks in to the same family dynamic. I mean, I experienced it myself.
What happened?
Well, I would always fall into, you know, I hate talking about this, but it's a reality just because I get along so well with my sister now and I love her to death. But, you know, there was a time where she was very mean and she was always very critical. And so every time we used to get together, I used to feel like that little kid. And I was always under, you know, that little kid, you know. And when I started to do the work and I, you know, worked through that and felt the anger and the sadness and all that stuff and then came into the healing, now I go see her and I literally don't feel that same energetic pull, you know, of being under her.
Right.
I literally feel like I can just enjoy the person that she is.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And she's very funny and very witty, so I can enjoy that. But before, I was in that child perspective without knowing it, and I was waiting for the criticism. So I was like on high alert, waiting for the criticism. And there was anything that, you know, then I would react to it, and then I would, you know,
and you're off to the races.
And off to the races. And not only that, I would remember that day, you know, negatively, because I felt the same as I felt when I was a kid. And now, as you just said, I can remember that day as well. What a fun time with, you know, with my family, because I'm viewing it and I'm remembering it from that adult, not from that little kid.
Not from that child.
Yeah.
No. And I'm the oldest, so I always walked in as the adult.
Right. You don't have to deal with that.
Nope, I don't even know what in the world you're talking about.
That. So maybe for you, it's about being compassionate. I know you do that already.
Yeah, no, it is. But it's reminding myself to be compassionate for my younger siblings.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody in my life, really, you know, of where they are in their journey, because we're all in different places in our journey.
Yeah.
And that's all it is a journey.
It really is.
It's an incredible journey, but it is a journey.
Yeah, it really is. And it's important to make it as pleasurable for yourself as possible. You know, again, with
bring in some joy.
Yeah, with that compassion for yourself and compassion for others.
Right.
You know?
And again, if you know, if maybe for the family they enjoy movies or maybe music or anything that's enjoyable, cards. Or last Thanksgiving, we went back to visit my daughter who was in Texas. That was a whole deal because it was Texas. And can I say that? And anyway, it was a wild trip. But at the end, we played this game that was so fun. And I would have never, I'm not really a game person.
Yeah, me neither.
And my significant spouse is not either. And but we played this game. Oh, what was that called? Cards Against Humanity. Now, if you want to have a fun time, oh my God.
That is. We played it at your house.
We did.
And I was
so
kind
fun.
of, when you brought it out, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, but it's really fun.
But it's a really fun game.
Yeah.
It kind of pulls you out of your shell.
Completely.
So that might be a wonderful idea.
Right.
That, you know, incorporate something new, incorporate a new tradition.
A new tradition.
Maybe,
right.
you know, or a new thing to do, whether it's a game or, you know, I don't know what it can be. But you might think of something new to kind of, that's another way to kind of change the dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another way to do it. Okay.
So how did you get along with your brother, John, when you were little? Did you guys get along well?
Well, interestingly enough, I didn't spend a lot of time with him because of the age difference. And,
How old?
So he's about 10 to 12 years older than I am.
Okay. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
is a big age difference.
So I didn't get a lot of time, and he's my half brother,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that my mother raised him and is my father's son. So,
I see. Mhm.
So now we're just sort of catching up because we have a lot in common. He lives here in California and had a similar life path. So it's
Wow,
yeah.
how
So
lovely.
So,
yeah.
Kelly, while you and I were being rather sarcastic,
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, have fun with that, John," when we first started the show, I think you're going to have a wonderful
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
wonderful.
I'm looking forward
holiday
to it.
with him.
Yeah. I don't go that often, and that's one thing that I feel guilty for when we're
Yeah.
talking about guilt and so forth. Because I live here in LA and he lives in San Diego, and I
Right.
feel I should visit more. And especially since he's the only relative I have here in California. All the rest of them are in Ohio. So, so a lot of times it's catching up on lost time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
making up for lost time, and
Which can
and
be a
all
lot of
that.
fun, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be.
And, I'm so glad that you're bringing that up because here's yet another way to kind of change things up. Go in with different questions. I mean, as siblings, we probably haven't seen each other in
That's
a while.
right.
We're all adults. We're kind of living our lives. So maybe come up with different questions that you can talk about, and get to know about your sibling or about your sibling's spouse.
Get to know them with new eyes.
Yeah, with
Get to know them as if you've never known them before.
Right, with
Wouldn't that be
adult
something?
eyes.
With adult eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful,
Yeah, it's a good one.
wonderful tip. Yeah. So I think that we've really kind of worked through this holiday
I think-
dysfunction into a
Dysfunction?
holiday function.
Yeah, we have.
Hey,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can smell the turkey.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
great.
So we hope that we've given you some wonderful tools to
And
work
some
on.
tips.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything to add?
Oh, I was just
Sean,
thinking
before
throughout
we
this
go?
whole discussion, which we've mentioned before in previous shows, is the movie Inside Out. Because that movie
Oh,
is
yeah.
so, we talk about creating memories and and creating new memories and
Yeah.
and reacting to the here and the now versus the past. And that movie and watching it with your family, I think, could be kind of therapeutic in some ways.
Well, it could be, or it could be triggering.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're right. It
Yeah.
actually could expand everybody's view.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Well, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's such a beautiful, simple movie that talks about the importance of every emotion.
Yeah.
So while you're doing this exercise that we're suggesting, if Dad was always very angry, be curious about that anger. What purpose did it serve? How did it start with your father? And notice that there is a place for it, but you don't have to be the recipient of that anger.
No.
And you can view him with more compassionate eyes. So that movie, I mean, what I loved about that movie was the message was so simple yet so profound, and I find myself these days saying that a lot, but it really is. It's
Right.
about the importance of every emotion.
Well, it's interesting because we've interviewed the creator of What the Bleep, or one of the creators. What the Bleep Do We Know? You probably have heard of that movie, and
Yeah.
it's pretty advanced out there with spiritual concepts and stuff.
Right,
This is like
right.
a kid version of that movie, which I think is
Interesting.
pretty interesting to get that for her to say that the comparison of that is pretty amazing. So it is taking it and putting it into a way that kids can grasp and understand it, but it's really a movie for the whole family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great quote here from Garrison Keillor. It says, "A lovely thing about Christmas is that it's compulsory, like a thunderstorm, and we all go through it together."
So even that could help
I mean, that's funny.
bound you with your family members, knowing that you're all going. If you're dreading it, know
Oh,
that everybody else is dreading it, and that might even be something to talk about.
It's so funny. There's usually one of the bunch that actually believes the myth. It's so
Right,
great.
exactly.
I love that
I was
person.
hoping it would be different this year. The reality is that if you're not doing something purposefully to make it different, it's not going to be different.
Right, right. Absolutely.
So,
become
yeah.
aware, become conscious, and become an adult.
Right. And that could be something, to even just open up the conversation in a funny way. Hey, were you dreading it as much as I was this year?
Oh, that's funny.
And talk about it that way. And again, just get rid of the elephant in the room and have a conversation about that.
Right.
So anyways, we wish you a wonderful Thanksgiving. We hope that we've taught you a few things or given you a few tools to make this holiday season a little bit more pleasurable for yourself.
Yes.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kellee White. Two perspectives, one world.